We recently did an interview about the dangers of fracking to the fracking workers, but what about the dangers to the people living near the fracking? We know about numerous instances of contaminated water near fracking locations, flammable water, water that smells like licorice, water that should not even come into contact with your skin. And in spite of the fracking industry continuing to argue that fracking is safe for human health, that any bad things that have ever happened were merely rare accidents that can be easily prevented, we have yet another study, Lewis, which shows a correlation between fracking and premature birth, as well as other problems in pregnancy. There's a new study in the US's fracking capital of Pennsylvania, and it finds, unsurprisingly, that women, pregnant women who live near gas fracking wells, are far more likely to give birth prematurely or develop problems during their pregnancy. Expectant mothers who live near natural gas fracking wells are 40% more likely to give birth prematurely and 30% more likely to have high-risk pregnancies. The findings are in a new study by Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, published in the journal Epidemiology, which looks at the health of Pennsylvania residents near and far from gas fracking operations. And that's the very simple explanation, Lewis. 40% increase in the likelihood of giving premature birth when you live near fracking wells, and 30% increase in what are considered high-risk designations, including elevated blood pressure, excessive weight gain during your pregnancy, etc. We do have to be careful, though, looking at correlation versus causation. It could be that the reason there are more high-risk pregnancies near fracking areas is because fracking is happening more in poor areas where people are already eating less healthy diets, being more overweight, and therefore being more predisposed to a high-risk pregnancy and premature birth. I mention this in the interests of being thorough, but it is yet another study that is at minimum showing the correlation.
Right. And so we have a study here that is just looking at numbers and statistics. And what they didn't do is go to children and mothers and test for chemicals or, things that might have come from the fracking process, right?
Sure, no question about it. And even that would be more information, but it wouldn't even be 100% definitive. We also, if you consider that the wealthy are more likely to have the political clout to prevent fracking near their homes, you may be, just as a virtue of economics, having more fracking sites close to economically disadvantaged areas. But it is yet another data point. And other studies that claim to monitor the air quality around fracking wells have found significant increases in volatile gases. New York State has banned fracking altogether. There's a moratorium on fracking in Maryland. Pennsylvania has embraced the industry, and we see this correlation: birth defects and high-risk pregnancies near fracking wells. The data will continue to come out, hopefully, Lewis. And the main point I keep going back to is we don't even have to have the debate over this, because we don't need to be fracking. If we prioritized other forms of energy development, we just don't need this.
Yeah, nothing good is going to come from fracking. And I know it creates jobs and it brings in some money, but it doesn't matter because that does not outweigh the harmful effects of fracking.